Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the soundtrack for the 1989 Game Boy game Super Mario Land, composed by Hirokazu Tanaka. This soundtrack was pretty good, and it is available through the Nintendo Music app. This is the track listing, 33 tracks. It comes in at about 24 minutes, which is pretty good. And these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 14 out of 33, so a little less than half. This album does take a little bit to get going. The First World theme is not great, but the soundtrack does manage to really go somewhere when you hit the boss theme. There are a couple of weird things here. First, each major track gets 3 versions. This isn't super surprising, since the other Mario games typically have a sped up version of most of their tracks when time is getting low, but for some reason they decided to speed each track up twice, even more when the time is even closer to ending. It doesn't really help. Also, the invincibility track here isn't the usual one from the other Mario games. It's still kind of a good track, but it's different. It's just a different song for some reason. Actually, in general, this soundtrack doesn't pull a ton from the other Mario games, probably because the composer was Tanaka instead of Koji Kondo, who did most of the other ones. The soundtrack does manage to continue pretty well into the back half. The theme for the final boss fight is pretty meh, but the actual ending song is pretty good, the end credits. Game Boy games tend to have pretty good soundtracks, but honestly, I wasn't blown away by this one. It's definitely good, but not outstanding. There are a lot of duds here, and tripling every track is kind of lame. It only works on a couple of them. My favorite track here, though, is probably the Chai Kingdom background music. It's the final world in the game, and despite using the Oriental riff right at the beginning, it's actually one of the more interesting tracks on the album. So the original is definitely better than the sped up versions, but it sounds pretty good no matter what. So that's definitely my favorite track here. I rank this soundtrack 7th out of the 9 Mario soundtracks I've heard so far, so on the lower end. Most of the Mario soundtracks are really good, so this one manages to rank pretty low for being just kind of good. It's pretty close to the Dr. Mario and Super Mario Bros. Soundtracks, where, it manages to be pretty good, but those ones have more iconic tracks on them, so the quality's similar, but you can't really compete with Super Mario Bros. And Dr. Mario in terms of sort of iconic tracks that continue throughout the series. It's pretty similar. Super Mario Land is pretty similar to Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Bros. 2, where it's good, but some of the songs aren't great, and there aren't really that many any standout hits from it. Also, I rank it 4th out of the 4 Game Boy soundtracks I've heard so far. Definitely the least interesting one. Super Mario Land is still good, but it failed to impress me the same way that the other soundtracks for that handheld did. I still think the music for the Game Boy is pretty good overall, but yeah, this is probably the worst one out of all the ones I've heard so far. It really, despite being pretty big, it doesn't really do a lot. Additionally, Super Mario Land doesn't take my top spot for 1989 Nintendo soundtracks. That stays with Tetris for the Game Boy, which you would have been able to tell based on the other rankings. That soundtrack's really great and definitely a lot more consistent. Unsurprisingly, it doesn't take my top overall either. That stays with Billy Joel's Stormfront, which is good and a lot more listenable than really any Nintendo soundtracks from the year. So, thank you for watching. Next up will be the soundtrack to Mario Paint, the 1992 game, for the SNES. This is a relatively recent addition to the Nintendo Music app, and I'm interested to see what they kind of came up with for this unique game. It's got kind of music on the cover and a whole bunch of stuff going on, so stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.